I look like shit right now, but this is me on a normal day. Every once in a while I like to sit down and do these thinking out loud videos just to get a few things off my chest. When I started YouTubing, this was more like, for me, it was just being creative, being able to, you know, just make videos for the fun of it, and also in a way to help me go through my struggles with depression as a therapy, I guess. For me, I'm very open, I can easily talk to people about any issues that I have, but it may not necessarily be received the way I expect it to, and I feel like a lot of times I do cater my words so I don't hurt their feelings, so it doesn't exactly come out the way I want it to do. So I pretty much do these just to get things that are off, like, you know, things that are going on in my mind, just get it off my chest, and in a way, I guess, long run, helping people that are going through the same issues, you know, understand, like, if anyone else has gone through the same thing, then understand there's someone else there that is also going through the same thing. And I also want to do a disclaimer, you know, that whatever I say now is not really at a professional advice or recommendation or anything like that. I'm not a professional. These are all purely based on my experiences and what I've kind of googled online. But yeah, so previously, like, if you've been following me, then you know I've struggled with depression, and if not, then, you know, feel free to subscribe to me or go through my old videos. But I've mentioned my previous struggles with depression. I know that it's an ongoing thing for me, because based on, you know, just every little factor about your life, I'm not saying it's an issue, but like, it's not one person has bullied me into depression or anything like that. It's a whole, I realize that it's a whole lot of factors of my life that has caused me to be this way. The one issue that I've had previously that I guess was a trigger for me is family, especially when it comes to Kyung's family. So we no longer speak to them. It's been like 2 years now. I'm very open about it as much as I can. Obviously out of respect for Kyung, that's why I don't go into full details and haven't done like a why we don't talk to them video. But I think I'm at the point now where we are at a good place, Kyung and I. I can only speak for myself, but the past 2 years have not gone lightly. Like, it has still been a struggle having just both of us to kind of work it out ourselves, and I've been very honest about that where I can, with the whole thing as well. But I feel like this year we've kind of I've moved past that point where maybe it's time that's made it a lot easier. Like, there's still, obviously I still think about things that happened in the past, because people say, you know, you shouldn't really think about the past, just move on to the future. But a lot of the times that past and that memory is all I have to hold on to, and it's very hard to say, you know, just move on, because they were a big factor of my life, that it's like pretty much telling you to forget half of your life almost. So yeah, it has been very hard, but right now we are in a good place. This year for us, I feel like, for me especially, that you know, I'm okay. But by saying that, it has kind of opened up new struggles along the way, and that's something that I wanted to kind of address in this video and just get off my chest. So like I mentioned, like, you know, I think for me there was different triggers in my life that caused different stages of like depression for me, and one of it was obviously his family. And like I said, I can't really discuss that yet, because out of respect for Kyung, and also out of respect for my family, considering what this topic is about. Like, this is something that, you know, I've wanted to do for a very long time, to kind of get this off my chest, but it's something that I had to address with my parents, my family, first, in order to do it, for them to understand. And what I'm about to say may not come out right, because it's just a whole lot of feelings in my head right now, but I'll try as much as I can to kind of make sense. So I guess the one part of my depression when it comes to family is that I struggle to, first of all, my struggle with depression is more not understanding why I'm feeling like this, why everything makes me feel so down. I feel like everything I do, I question my existence, for example, and like, why am I doing this, why am I here? And it got to a point where I felt so low that I didn't know what else to do. So naturally you would, you know, first step is to tell your friends, tell your family, and that step itself can be very, very hard to admit and to open up to. So that's what I did. The reception I got from, I guess, my family and Callum's family were completely different, and to the fact that I felt like, you know, I felt like whatever I did for them before, whatever relationship we had, was nothing. Like, I felt like they easily turned their backs on me and then just, you know, didn't want anything, like didn't care about how I was going through. And it really hurt me even more. It's not the fact that they just turned their back, is that I felt like they didn't understand. They still didn't understand who I was, but they weren't, I felt like, you know, I was nothing to them, that they didn't want to know. And it questioned me, as in, you know, it made me feel like, well, am I nobody to someone? Like, anyone? Like, just nobody. Like, I felt really crap, feeling really worthless. Like, what is the point of my existence? And that was like a trigger for me. And then I realized, like, within the past few months, certain things have happened that made me, I guess, I kind of knew, because that was also what frustrated me in my depression, that a lot of times I can't exactly say it's their fault. You know, they've done nothing wrong as a human being. They haven't hurt me they haven't hurt me like physically, I guess, or anything like that, but it frustrated me even more because I couldn't blame them. I couldn't blame myself, but I had no one to blame, and I couldn't pinpoint exactly, you know, what was wrong to blame something. But yeah, so I guess what the past few months, what's changed is it made me realize, moving on, that whatever issue I had with his family was not exactly a personal thing. It was more, the issue wasn't just them, it was a community thing that I struggled with the most. So recently my grandma has been in hospital for she was in there for about 5 weeks. She's 95, she's old, and we literally thought, you know, this was the time. And I wasn't ready to let her go, to be honest, because she's like one of my favorite people, like my mentors in life, my idols, and I wasn't ready to let her go. And things, like, I guess it made me realize as well. So I guess a little bit of history is that my background is, my parents are from East Timor, so we're Chinese Timorese, and I was lucky enough that my parents came in the 70s, early 80s, so they kind of adapted to the Western culture, because there was a big migration block of Timorese coming to Australia back in the 90s, I guess. Not just, I'm just saying this because obviously I'm Timorese, like my background is Timorese, so, you know, this is an example, but I'm pretty sure this happens with all cultures, Asian cultures, that they like to congregate in the same area. There's like a big community base, and we're still quite a minority. Like, it's not like like in Australia there's like a big Vietnamese, you know, Chinese popular, like, you know, community. Ours is small. I reckon it's smaller compared to that, but they still congregate around the same place. And what I struggle to understand, like, I guess growing up, my struggle was that I never really fitted in that Timorese community, because my parents adapted. Like, I appreciate that my parents put in an effort to really adapt to the new country, the new way of life and things like that. And I wasn't so much, like, we didn't attend a lot of like community like events, parties and things like that, so I was pretty much out of it. But growing up, I then had friends that were Timorese, so then I was kind of exposed to it. And then when Kel and I started dating, like, you know, it really brought me back into it to like, you know, to know more about the culture. But the one thing I hated about being Timorese was that feeling of fakeness. That's the only way I can really explain it. Like, people, it's all about respect, but respect isn't necessarily genuine. It's about, you know, having a face and name of yourself. You know, when you, as a child, I remember going to, like, when you meet someone that's Timorese, the first question they'll ask is, you know, who your father is and things like that. And at a young age, I remember thinking, why does it matter who my dad is? Like, I am me because of me, you know. Whatever I do is not a reflection of what my parents have like, well, obviously they've guided me, but my decisions are what I've come up with, not them. So why does it really matter? And it's really stupid. Like, it's just little things like that. I notice, like, you know, when it comes to New Year's and events, everyone will put on their face and, you know, be happy there, but then the rest of the year they don't generally speak or anything like that. And it's like, I notice that not many people, like, you know, everyone knows everyone's business, like, you know, what business they've, like, you know, if they've got a actual business, you know, how they're doing in life. This person's going overseas, they have a really nice car and things like that. The son's a doctor, you know, but no one questions, like, you know, or no one speaks about things that happen behind doors. Like, my own experience that I've always been told, you know, she's just this fat girl, you know, she's a fat girl, you know, oh, my parents have always told me, you know, that person's daughter is, like, you know, a nurse, or that person's son is, like, a doctor, or, like, you know, he works in, like, you know, the office as a business. And they don't question, like, I'm here, like, you know, I've always been like, oh, you know, that fat girl or that girl, like, where do you work? Like, you know, I just work in a call center or things like that. Which I'm like, am I supposed to feel bad about that? Like, at the end of the day, even though their kid's like a doctor or something, I'm here, like, living my life happy who I am. I have like a boyfriend. I've got a steady income, my own car. I do my life. But then I'm like, but even though they're a doctor or something, like, they're home by themselves. They don't have much friends. You know, they don't go out as much, or they still live at home. And I'm like, how, just because of your title, it's like they judge you more on your title than you are as a person. Like, that person might have, like, you know, have criminal records and things like that, but no one judges them. It's more about your title and, like, where you fit in that society, that community. And that is something that I never really understood or never really got. And for me, it's impacted me personally, because I felt like, you know, there was one situation where I felt like I was attacked, and instead of sticking up for me for support, I felt like, you know, that person cared more about, oh my god, make sure no one knows about this because everyone's going to find out and it's going to be bad. I'm like, I felt like their image was more important than my safety, and that really hurt me. So that's why I kind of stay out of that community and keep my distance. So anyway, back to the story. So my grandma was in hospital, and what I love about my family is that even though my grandma had 11 children, like, not one of them was fighting. Like, there's no beef or anything. Everyone is still very close. So while she was in hospital, like, you know, everyone came to visit. Even my uncles and cousins interstate came over, and, like, you know, everyone was at peace. You know, there was at least one person will stay overnight with her every night. Like, they'll just take turns to, like, you know, be with her, and, like, every day, like, 5-6 people will go, and even extended relatives will go and visit her, which I couldn't understand. It's like, you don't put in, like, you don't see someone, and this is what I didn't understand, is that people don't necessarily see someone during the year or call them, ask how they are, but until something happens where you're either terminally ill or you're about to die or you're dead, that's when people come and pay respects. And that's something I could never understand. Like, why wait to the last minute when you could do it any other time, especially if they were a very close friend? And that's something that I struggled with, knowing that, you know, because we don't talk to their family, what if one day one of us did die and that's the only time they will come and it's too late by then? You know, I wouldn't even want them there, because I feel like, well, if that's what you think of me, like, you know, I just wouldn't even want them. So that's, yeah, something that I didn't really understand. But there were a few questions from my family asked and said that really put me, like, it wasn't a big trigger, but it really triggered me, like, this time around, where it did really upset me. And especially because it was even something that my own mother said really opened up a new struggle that I realized what my problem was, is that whatever issue I had with his family, it wasn't directed at his, it was more of a community cultural thing, that, you know, that children are like young, how do I say this, but young people are supposed to respect their elders no matter what, even though the elders make them feel like shit or they don't give a shit about them. No matter what happens, you need to respect the elders. And that's something that I could never really grasp the understanding on, because I believe that, you know, you can't expect to respect an elder if that elder has never taught you that respect. You know, they expect you to call them, you to, you know, say hi to them first, or like, you know, all this kind of stuff. But for me, it's like, I don't understand that, because how can you expect to respect someone that hasn't taught you that? You know, when you see their own lives, like what they do, what they don't do, but yet you have to go out of your way. And for me, it's like, especially if someone's really hurt me, I don't care if they're older than me or not. It's like, respect is not given, it's earned. And if you haven't earned that respect, then I'm not going to give that to you. And, you know, it may sound like a bitch of me to say that, but that's, you know, growing up, that's how I felt. And then I realized, like, whatever issue I have in the past, it's a constant struggle, not just for me, but just being Asian, especially first generation in a Western culture. Like, that's the struggle that we deal with, is that in an Asian culture, it's all about respecting elders and stuff. But no matter what, you'll never really, especially when you're going through depression, you'll never really get what you need to help support you. And I felt so frustrated, it really ate me up, like, so many times, that I just felt trapped, and it almost brought on another spiral of depression in me, where I just felt like I was crying most nights to sleep. You know, I wasn't thinking straight, and I was constantly feeling down and useless. So I guess that's what I wanted to kind of address. Now, I'm not saying that I have an answer or anything, but it's just me thinking out loud, getting that awareness out there that there is an issue with Asian cultures and depression, because it's pretty much still a taboo. And I did do a little research about it. I've spoken to a few people in that profession as well, to get, I guess, you know, try to get their understanding. And from what I've read on Google and stuff, is that especially Asian Americans, for some reason I can't find much about Asian Australians, but maybe that's something that, you know, we need to work on, is that a lot of there is a higher rate of depression in Asians, and also suicides, because it's still almost like a taboo. Whereas a lot of parents feel like, you know, if my child is going through depression, it's my fault, and you know, it should be a shame that they're doing this, like, you've done something wrong. And I've realized now that is true. Like, the way the response I get, that's how I feel, is that, you know, I'm not blaming them, saying that, you know, that's the way they've been growing up. And I think that's what I struggle with the most, is that, and why I'm not getting any answers, and why I find it hard to move on, is because you can't tell someone to fix things if they don't know how to fix it, because that's just how they've been brought up. And I know this may not make any sense right now, but I guess for an example, like I said, I had to, like, obviously out of respect, this is something I had to discuss with my parents first. And the way I explained it to my dad was that, you know, it's not something that I expect him to understand how I feel, but he needs to see from my perspective. I'm not doing this to hurt him. He didn't do anything wrong. It's just a cultural difference that everyone needs to be aware, is that when you, as an Asian, whether you come from, like, you know, Timor, if you come from, like, Vietnam, China, Cambodia, like, any Asian, like, even not just Asian, I'm pretty sure this is like any kind of culture, especially though, because obviously I'm Asian, but it's like growing up in almost like a poverty third world country, is that life was not, there is no affection, nothing like that. Like, you support where you can, but the only way they know how to support is more financially, or just helping where they can. But it's pretty much growing up teaching your kids how to live life for survival. You know, I've noticed, like, you know, people will have kids, they'll, you know, their responsibility that they know of is to make sure they're fed, make sure they're well looked after, that they're clean, make sure, you know, and I don't even think schooling was a big factor. It's as long as they are alive to the point where they can support themselves, then that's, you know, your job is done almost. And that's something I could never really understood, but that's just the way it was. It was that, you know, as a parent, you do much as you can to set your kid free into the world when they're ready. And then hopefully, you know, by the time you're older, that they have their own family, that they can then turn around and look after you as well. And in my opinion, that's why I think, especially, you know, I always think, you know, if you can't financially support yourself, why would you have so much kids? Because that's a lot of mouths to feed. But then I realized it's because those kids are almost like security for yourself, that, you know, if something happens, at least you've got another one that one of those kids can look after you, kind of thing. And that's personally what I think that mentality is like in some people. So yeah, but then when you come to a Western culture where that culture is, you know, of all about, you know, showing affection, loving your kids, you know, raising them not just for their own dreams, but also so they can fulfill their lives as happy as they can. And nowadays there is a lot of awareness, like mental health in women, in men's especially, bullying, that especially for someone that is first generation in a Western culture, is that we're very different in how we think now compared to how our parents were thinking when they were our age. And that's the issue, is that gap, is that they don't understand what it is to live now being us, and we don't understand what it's like to be them. And the fact that both parties have, like, you know, are not willing to accept each other or try to come to an understanding, that's the main issue. That's, you know, what's wrong with society, what's wrong with, you know, everything. And when I explained it to my dad, you know, the first thing I asked him was, like, you know, because I know my parents, they wanted the best for us, because my dad, when he came down to Australia, he's worked his ass off the whole time to get his family over and also to support us. And he wants the best for us so we don't have to struggle and, like, go through what he went through. So I asked him, you know, what did you want for us? And it was like, you know, you make sure that your kids are well safe and everything, but make sure that they don't have to work as hard as he has, that they can fulfill their dreams of being whatever they want. And I think also being a female as well, in a country where, you know, we do support or try to support equality, it's like you want your daughter to be able to not just be someone's wife, someone's caretaker, is to look after someone's kid, is you want them to have a career of their own, to be successful and not have to rely on people. But then what happens when all that dreams for your child, especially your daughter, gets taken away when they marry or go into another family, where it's almost like going backwards, because they're treated like, where they feel treated like, you know, you're just there as like a daughter-in-law, you're just there to follow their moral, like, you know, their family and like what they believe in, but you're not necessarily being accepted as an individual, as a person. Like, you know, they don't see you as who you are as a person, they see you as just a daughter-in-law. And it's heartbreaking. Like, for me, my own personal experience is, I don't know how to explain it, but feeling complete worthless. Like, I felt like everything that I grew up thinking, you know, you can be the best in what you can do whatever you like, just be thrown out the door because no one tells you, you know, oh, but just make sure you know that there will be people on the way that don't give a shit about you, and, like, you know, and I felt worthless. Like, I felt like my existence was, like, you know, people that I opened up to, that I thought would be there for me, accepted me as family, turned their backs on me and made me feel like whatever I thought was family was nothing. Like, it was all a lie. And I don't think my parents understood as well, not just my parents, but as in an Asian parent, understands what that feels like, is when you have dreams and you want the best of your child, to be then feel like they deserve nothing, that they do, that they're worthless. It's like that feeling of feeling like empty, and like it questions what's the point of even being here. Like, everyone has their own mind, their own heart, their own body, but it's not exactly yours, and you feel trapped. And obviously, like, you know, it's not something that my parents will ever understand how I feel, but when my mum especially asks questions, or, you know, in front of other aunties and stuff, saying, you know, when was the last time you spoken to them, you should go back, or like, you know, you should, my auntie was like, you should recall them because, you know, they're older than you. But they don't understand, just because they're older than you, it's like you almost have to lose your own dignity and like self-respect. That they don't understand that I'm not doing this. We didn't do this because, you know, it was a petty little thing. Oh, they don't support us, therefore we're not talking to them. It's that inner feeling of feeling utterly worthless, that they make you feel like your existence is nothing. That is something that I can't explain to them how it feels. But what frustrates me is that they will never know, because they don't know that feeling. They don't know what it's like until they've gone through their own experiences. It will always be a struggle to get, I guess, two different generations to understand how that feels. And, you know, I'm sitting here explaining this, trying to get it out there, but I know, like, you know, I don't have an answer myself. I don't know what to do. Like, I want to be able to say, you know, I get it, but then again, they don't get it, and it's, you really need both generations to come to an understanding. Like, as someone going through depression in a younger generation, like, I hope you can understand, if you're in my position, that, you know, it has nothing to do with you. Don't feel like you're personally attacked in who you are. They may not realize it at all, and I know it's a struggle because I'm still struggling with it, but don't take that as heart, you know, that when they turn around, because I've had someone turn around and say, you know, after I've tried many times to try to explain this to them, you know, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to, like, I can't do anything. Everyone has, like, I was told this, like, everyone has their own problems, you know, everyone has their own struggles. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, you know, and I was really hurt by that, because I felt like if you genuinely care about someone, it should be part of you. It should be part of human, you know, humility, that you fix it. Like, wouldn't it be better if everyone helped each other with their own problems than having to deal with it individually? And that's honestly how I felt. But by saying that, I feel like, you know, every time, like, it's not an eye for an eye. I don't see it as I'll help you, now you owe me. But it did make me feel like all the other times I've spent my time helping you, that I feel like it was a waste of my time, kind of thing. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, as a younger generation going through depression, trying to seek help from family, thinking that, you know, they're all alone because, you know, their parents turn their back on them, they don't understand, is acknowledge, try to understand that, you know, it's not a personal attack, it's that they generally don't know how. And, you know, it will take time, but try not to hold it as hard, like attack them saying that this is your fault that I am like this. Like, I know I'm probably not the best person to give advice and suggestions, considering, you know, mine hasn't really worked. But at the end of the day, you need to know that it isn't a personal attack on you. They're not personally attacking you. They just don't know how to deal with it. Whether, you know, I don't know, like, I still struggle with that. Like, I've tried Googling it, I've tried therapy, and nothing really generally works. You just need to find something that you like to keep you motivated in life, and until you reach past, like, that stage of below the line, then that's when you can, I guess, start to accept things as well. But at the same time, if you're in the older generation where you can't understand why you're, you know, that person is depressed, you can't understand why they're crying to you, expecting, you feel pressured that, you know, you have to fix it. It's not that, you know, it's not your fault that you've caused this on them. It's that that person is generally trapped, that they're drowning in their own sorrows, that they're just wanting that person to help them. You know, it doesn't have to be financial help or anything, just little things, like little sayings, like include them into like things, call them once in a while, even asking, how are you? Little things like that, knowing that, you know, you will be there for them no matter what. You may not be able to talk about their emotions, you may not be able to understand what they're feeling, but as long as you include them into everyday lives, that you don't shut them out completely, making them feel, you know, like they've got this disease or something like that. It's just little things like that. Is being human and say, you know, if someone is down, just be with them. Like, a lot of times people going through depression don't necessarily need a lot of things. They just need someone to be with them. Whether it's just sitting in the same room watching TV or just asking how your day is, just checking on them once in a while, you know. That's all they really need. And I'm hoping like one point in life that there will be this bridge where, you know, of acceptance, but I understand at this point that there is still a gap that needs to be worked on. So yeah, so that is me thinking out loud, and I know this may not make a lot of sense because a lot of things in my head don't really make a lot of sense, but I felt like I really need to get that off my chest. And yeah, so, you know, if it doesn't make sense, that's fine. If it helps at least one person, then, you know, as that's all that really matters. So, you know, feel free to leave a comment if you can try and translate this, or if you have any advices, any tips to kind of get through this. But yeah, until next time, thanks for watching.